Coming up on Mountain News at 5:30, the January 6th committee votes to subpoena Donald Trump, what the vote could mean for the former president. And the shooter behind one of the country's worst school shootings was sentenced today, why some families are not happy.
Plus, cooler air continues to filter through the region into the evening and overnight hours tonight. How chilly we are tonight, and where we go from here coming up as Mountain News at 5:30 starts now.
Dedicated to Southern and Eastern Kentucky, this is WYMT Mountain News at 5:30.
Good evening, I'm Steve Hensley. The final scheduled public hearing of the House Select Committee investigating the January 6th attack on the U.S. Capitol once again captured the attention of Washington today, and it ended with a surprising development. CBS's Skyler Henry reports on the day's events from Capitol Hill.
There are 9 ayes and 0 noes.
At its final scheduled public hearing, the House January 6th committee voted and unanimously approved a subpoena summoning former President Donald Trump to appear before the panel.
It is our obligation to seek Donald Trump's testimony.
Earlier, the committee introduced new information from the Secret Service about what happened the day of the insurrection.
Some members of the crowd are wearing ballistic helmets, body armor, carrying radio equipment, and military-grade backpacks.
Secret Service communication also detailed prior knowledge about the possibility of violence leading up to January 6th. Each committee member spoke, summarizing their overall allegations that former President Trump was at the center of the attempt to overturn the 2020 election results.
In a staggering betrayal of his oath, Donald Trump attempted a plan that led to an attack on a pillar of our democracy. It's still hard to believe.
The committee will produce a final report on its findings sometime after the midterm elections. Members have been meeting for more than a year. The hearing also focused on the former president's state of mind.
Claims that President Trump actually thought the election was stolen are not supported by fact and are not a defense.
They need massive personnel now.
There was also new video presented of members of Congress calling for help at the height of the attack.
They're breaking the law in many different ways.
Skyler Henry, CBS News, Capitol Hill.
The last hearing was held in July. No witnesses spoke today. The owner and chief financial officer of a former business in Perry County were both indicted for conspiracy to commit wire fraud, multiple counts of wire fraud, and conspiracy to commit money laundering. Department of Justice officials say a jury convicted 53-year-old Douglas William Vance of Richlands, Virginia, and 59-year-old Molly Irene McKinnon of Ackworth, Georgia, after a 6-day trial. Evidence at trial revealed from 2016 to 2018, Vance and McKinnon used falsified bank statements, financial reports, purchase orders, sales and production figures, and other fabrications to convince different investors that each owned a controlling stake in a company called NextGen. The company said it produced calcined coal and other carbon-based products in Chavies. The two will appear for sentencing on February 3rd, 2023. They face a maximum of 20 years in prison on each count.
Still looking pretty darn nice outside as we continue to see clouds decrease from west to east throughout the mountains tonight. We saw cloudless skies earlier from London Corbin Airport, and we're seeing the clouds continue to diminish here in Perry County. There's a look outside our front door here from our WYMT studios on Black Gold Boulevard. It's 64 outside. It is rather comfortable. It's a beautiful afternoon, turning into a beautiful evening. Low to mid 60s still out there at the moment, and we'll continue to see temperatures dropping into the 50s over the next couple of hours. Last of our clouds from earlier, and our showers certainly long gone. Another little spoke of energy is trying to bring some clouds over into parts of the Ohio Valley, but those should stay north of us and leave us alone. So keep that First Alert weather app handy. No, you won't be seeing that on your window tonight, but you will be seeing maybe a little bit of frost. You may have to hit the defrost if you're headed out later on tonight into the 40s. Overnight, some of us may even sneak into the 30s, but we do have some improvements on the way before returning to a more fall-like atmosphere around the region. Those details coming up in a few minutes. Steve?
Evan, thank you. Parkland shooter Nikolas Cruz has learned his fate more than 4 years after committing one of the deadliest school shootings in U.S. history. Cruz pleaded guilty last year to killing 17 people and injuring 17 others when he opened fire on Marjory Stoneman Douglas High School back in February 2018. Today, after a months-long trial and 7 hours of deliberations, the jury recommended the judge sentence Cruz to life without the possibility of parole for each of the murder and attempted murder charges in the case. And what defense attorneys had argued for, saying Cruz suffered throughout his life from mental disorders and developmental delays.
Today's ruling was yet another gut punch for so many of us who devastatingly lost our loved ones on that tragic Valentine's Day at Marjory Stoneman Douglas High School. 17 beautiful lives were cut short by murder. Heinous, pre-planned, torturous murder. And the monster that killed them gets to live another day.
The judge will issue her formal ruling on November 1st, but under Florida law, she cannot depart from the jury's recommendation of life. While several parents expressed their outrage at the sentence determined by the jury, Florida Governor Ron DeSantis also talked about it. He said the system takes too long and is not servicing the interests of victims. Governor DeSantis was critical of both the process leading to the sentence and the sentence itself.
I think that if you have a death penalty at all, that is a case where you're massacring those students with premeditation and utter disregard for basic humanity, that you deserve the death penalty. And so the jurors came back. Apparently it was 11-1 with one holdout refusing to authorize the ultimate punishment. And that means that this killer is going to end up getting a same sentence of people who've committed bad acts, but acts that did not rise to this level. I just don't think anything else is appropriate except a capital sentence in this case.
Another verdict was handed down in a school shooting related case. A jury determined radio talk show host and conspiracy theorist Alex Jones must pay nearly $1 billion in damages. Yes, that's billion with a B, to the families of Sandy Hook shooting victims. Jones repeatedly called the school massacre a hoax on the air. Last year, a judge found him liable of defamation by default after he failed to produce documents demanded in the lawsuit. CBS's Nikki Batiste has followed this case for many months and has more from Waterbury, Connecticut.
We, the jury, have reached our verdict as to damages in this case.
In less than 3 days, the 6 jurors decided the conspiracy theorist Alex Jones must pay more than $965 million in compensatory damages for spreading false claims that the 2012 Sandy Hook school shooting was a hoax.
I let my voice be taken away from me.
Robbie Parker lost his daughter, Emily. Parker testified that a video of him speaking at his daughter's funeral was mocked by Jones.
I'm just proud that what we were able to accomplish was just to simply tell the truth.
Jones and his company, Free Speech Systems, were sued by 8 victims' families and an FBI agent who responded to the shooting over claims the company made millions spreading misinformation about the tragedy. Jones and his attorney maintained that the trial was a sham and an attack on his First Amendment rights. Though he was not in court, Jones watched live on his webcast. He cheered while the verdict was read, mocking the families and saying they won't receive any payments.
How likely is it that this will financially ruin or could financially ruin Alex Jones?
Well, one of the things that Alex Jones tried to do throughout this case was to hide his assets.
Jones' company filed for bankruptcy in July, but a forensic economist in a previous case estimated that Jones is personally worth as much as $270 million. Since this case will not have a cap on punitive damages, Judge Barbara Bellis will now consider how much Jones will ultimately have to pay. The fight also continues for Mark Barden, who lost his son Daniel in the tragedy.
And after each victory, Daniel's still dead. And nothing will bring him back. But everything that I do is to protect others from having to live this pain.
The jurors also determined that Alex Jones should pay the plaintiff's legal and attorney fees. Jones' lawyer said he plans to appeal the decision. The radio host faces a third trial in Texas later this year over a lawsuit filed by the parents of another child killed in the shooting. Nikki Batiste, CBS News, Waterbury, Connecticut.
Coming up on Mountain News at 5:30, cyber attacks now targeting schools. We explore ransomware attacks on school systems and how your child's information could be in jeopardy.
Plus, some chilly weather on the way tonight and more on the way. The full breakdown with the latest on weekend rain chances, too. That's coming up.